So we've started, we've begun. This is Lou Martin here, and you can see I'm with my special guest, Marianne Adams, and the two of us have taken time out of our mad and wonderful busy lives today to talk about the artist's way and why we're excited to explore this material together and co-facilitate it for the first time. Yeah.
And we could think about it as an investment of time, couldn't we?
Yes, absolutely. It certainly is that. Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself for my folks who haven't met you before and why we're hanging out.
So Lou and I actually did the Artist Way about 7 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
Which was a great group experience. It was a phenomenal collection of weeks, wasn't it?
It was one of the highlights of my life, let me tell you. Yeah.
That kind of went on and on because there was such a camaraderie and kind of shared inspiration that emerged through the work.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a very conscious community. And so that was wonderful to be a part of that as well.
But maybe, for me, one of the kind of strongest aspects of the work, of Julia's work, and then maybe we'll talk about the art therapy a bit later, but just is that kind of amazing momentum that grows.
Yes.
When you allow your creativity to start flowing.
Yes.
There's kind of no stopping it once it gets going. And when it's a collective experience, then, the sum of individuals is even more momentous, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. That's beautifully said. Yes. I mean, really, that was one of the most successful classes I ever had. And that's why it went on and on.
Yeah.
And Skibbereen is a very magical place that's dear to my heart. But yeah, when... So this is, I think, the 7th time I will have taught the Artist's Way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm, there's always more there because basically for me, so I'm a spiritual counselor and an intuitive guide and a channel. Marianne does lectures in art therapy at Crawford Gallery.
So I help train people who are going to become art therapists. So
Very
I'm
good.
part of the professional training at CIT.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So between the two of us, I feel like we're going to have a really deep understanding of how we have used and supported other people to use this tool and creativity in their lives to unblock spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think a really good combination of the masculine and the feminine. Do you know the feminine and the masculine in both of us?
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
I don't always get the chance, as we were kind of saying just a few minutes ago, I don't always get the chance to kind of talk quite so directly about spirituality, although it definitely would be a flavour of what I teach.
Sure.
And it's certainly a kind of ongoing undercurrent of all of my experience, whether that's kind of explicitly stated or not.
Sure.
In my clinical work and in my teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, both of us are teachers and students of consciousness, like everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
And what I want to say is that, we both work with the inner child and helping people to feel safe, loved, and supported so they can access, that wisdom and that authenticity, And the Artist's Way for myself, is just a uniquely powerful tool because it really creates that not only the one-off experience, which is a lot of what we do with people, but really creating a structure and form for a 12-week commitment to make this journey into reconnecting with your inner child.
Yeah. And to give people some fundamental tools in continuing that journey, and a kind of a structure and a kind of discipline's a bit of a heavy word, but some kind of sense of structure and discipline really to continue generating or aligning with that momentum.
Yes, the word I like is practice. That life is a spiritual practice. Whatever we practice, we get better at. It is a discipline. The other way to see it is, when we're making a commitment, as we all will, to do the morning pages, 3 pages every morning, and to look at the chapter in between the week, and to go through the exercises and find the ones that are easy and the ones that are hard, and do some hard ones and do some easy ones, then stuff comes up, and it is what I want to say, I guess, at the outset is it's it's always kind of shocking to people how much grief and anger is there in that unexplored part of ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, over the years, I like to, and this is a kind of, you know, I'm talking more as an art therapist really, but it overlaps so beautifully with the work that Julia does. I kind of think of us all as kind of fountains.
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, so there's a source of incredible energy and inspiration running through all of us inevitably, you know, for us to be alive at all.
Sure.
But that through the course of life and, you know, what we've had and what we haven't had, the difficult experiences we've had, maybe not being met and held at crucial points in our life.
Yeah.
We're like a living archaeology where, you know, that kind of flow has been kind of blocked at points.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, therefore it ends up going out at all sorts of strange angles.
Yeah.
You know, it's repressed and then it has to kind of release in other ways.
Yes.
And so what creativity does, or facilitated creativity initially, is it kind of helps to just gently start holding those blocks, allowing the flow to free them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in art therapy, one of the amazing things that happens, the wisdom of the series of images that somebody might make over a series of weeks. Is that, you know, as the energy starts moving, because it feels safe enough to start moving, it starts dissolving the blocks. And in the images themselves, you see the residue of what has been blocking you. You start seeing your psychic patterns, you know, embedded in the artwork, not something that you've done consciously.
Sure.
But it's just part of that incredible wisdom when life really is able to flow through us.
Yes, that's very good. That's very good. Yeah. You know, Abraham has a great phrase. They say, it's right where you left it. You know, all right?
Explain that one.
Well, sure. It's a juicy nugget. So it's, you know, what we deny has to come at us as fates is the other one.
Yeah. Okay. So that would be, Jung would agree with that, wouldn't he?
Right. That I think that may be where I borrowed that from.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is Jung actually. So you got that one absolutely. So yeah, it's like, so what we're saying is, you know, when you create a safe, loving, supportive space for people to explore and express what has been denied, then in the process of making peace with that, coming to terms with that, facing that, feeling those feelings, not worrying about the meaning of things so much, just moving through the experience of expressing whatever's there. Really, really powerful wisdom, insight, courage, compassion, forgiveness, healing, mercy comes into people's lives, because we don't know how much we're holding on to until we begin to let it go. Yeah. You know, and this is a vessel to help us to let go even more deeply. Yeah.
And if we follow that kind of Jungian theme, you know, so Jung envisages the conscious, and we start kind of sinking towards the unconscious, which is where we kind of hold a lot of these kind of blockages, these experiences that were impossible to bear.
Right.
So we therefore have to kind of repress them.
Sure.
But with good, gentle, loving holding, you know, they're able to start coming towards consciousness. But if we keep following that kind of that paradigm down, then we come to the collective unconscious. Where we actually merge, you know, on that energetic level. Right. So inevitably, do you know, when the flow starts getting stronger from that deeper place, you know, we're connecting much more fully to life in general and to each other, to ourselves, you know, which just makes the kind of vibrancy of life so much stronger. Yeah.
Well, leave it to woman to point that out, you know, because our oneness, no, it's lovely. It's a beautiful thing. Our oneness, our wholeness, you know, that we all come together at our depth, you know, that is, to me, that's a very feminine knowing. You know, that there is no separation, that it isn't about competition, comparison. You know, that's very masculine in the ego and the mind. You know, I'm just being very general here. But yes, it's like the tip of the iceberg, as they say. So the conscious mind is this, but the unconscious is that. And then the collective unconscious is our connection to everyone. And like to go another step with Jung, the archetypes and all that come up, we start to see how we all have the same story, just in a different version. You know.
Yeah, and as we go deeper still, then we're connected to the infinite.
Yes.
Aren't we? And the essence of life itself.
Yes.
which is the source that we're hoping to help expand.
Yeah.
You know, the fountain of that source we're hoping to kind of expand for people that are really interested in following the artist's way.
Yes.
And
yes.
Julia does that brilliantly.
Yes. Yes.
She really does.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I got to see her. Did I ever tell this story?
No.
Yeah. Back in the States, in Kansas City. Here's my Julia story. Was living in a lovely part of Kansas City, and they had the Charles and Mildred Fillmore, the Unity Church there, which is a New Thought church like Agape, which I was connected with in Los Angeles. So anyway, Julia gave a lecture. She was very charming, very funny, very unpretentious, very, talked about her drug addiction and her marriage to Martin Scorsese. And
she was married to
oh
Martin
my goodness,
Scorsese.
yes. This is who we're talking about here, yeah.
Huh.
And, of course, she, like all of us, she found her voice at the other side of desperation, and she was really looking for a way to heal herself when she came up with this way that has turned into a method for all of us to heal ourselves. And then she finished it off beautifully by singing a lovely song a cappella.
Wow.
And we were utterly charmed by the time she left the lecture, and we were all dazzled.
Maybe we should finish like that.
Sure. We'll work on that for next time. How's that sound? Yeah. So anything else you want to talk about here? I mean, this is great because you and I just said, will we do this? Sure, let's do this. And here we are. So I'm just thrilled.
I mean, maybe let's talk about the inner child. I mean, I think sometimes, I don't know, when I hear the inner child, sometimes I find it slightly cringy.
Okay.
I don't know, just because it can be used in quite a cliched way, I think sometimes.
Sure. Not everyone means the same thing or knows what they mean. Yeah.
But really, we're talking about kind of, again, enlivening that capacity to be curious, to be connected to life, to really kind of see into things. I mean, one amazing thing about being an artist is that you just generally really look deeply at things. You know, like the texture of a jumper or the movement of your hands, or there's that kind of, I don't know.
Well, the word is, to me, it's innocence.
Okay.
Where you're really open, you're really vulnerable to whatever is in the moment.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot of clutter.
Yeah.
And yes, that's a perfect definition for the inner child.
Yeah.
That everything is fresh and new, and there's a wanting to express and play and create and find out what things can lead to and how things can expand from that.
And so what Julia helps us do is to start kind of becoming conscious of, and then gently soften the conditioning that inevitably ends up becoming part of our sense of identity.
Sure.
And if we have, I'm kind of this kind of person, which you have to do to kind of defend yourself against certain feelings.
Sure.
Then, she allows you to become conscious of that, and for that to kind of soften, and therefore, for your spontaneity to expand.
Yes. That's beautifully said. Drunvalo Melchizedek, who's one of my spiritual heroes, teacher in the States, he said that the thing is that to get to the higher self, you've got to go through the inner child. Okay. And I'm sure you've heard this from me a good few times. So Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be as innocent as a child.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, the clues are everywhere. Rumi's poetry, all the great mystics, they're all saying, of course, the same thing. Get out of your head, open your heart, and let spirit through you.
Yeah. And
then you'll free who you are. You'll no longer be tied to the past.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, yes, I agree with the idea of getting out of your head, but I also think, when we kind of learning from all of the amazing neurobiological work that's going on, what we're starting to understand is to be kind of more fully integrated, therefore more our repertoire of possible choices in any one moment to be expanded. We need to be kind of making a movement from the left hemisphere to the right
Oh
hemisphere.
God, yes, that's absolutely.
From the masculine to the feminine, from the kind of structured to the spacious, and so it's not about one or the other.
Oh God, yeah.
It's
both and.
It's a harmonic kind of relationship between the two, isn't it?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, music is a perfect metaphor for a note will stand out, and then it becomes a chord, and then it becomes a song or a symphony. And we need all the parts working together in order for it to do its magic. Yeah, no, it's a great point. Meditation, of course, is one way to synchronize the hemispheres. Creativity is another way.
Yeah.
And they both do the same job pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're learning about the gut so much these days, right? And how it really is the third brain, then we've got Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and people like this. I don't know if you're familiar.
Bruce Lipton, I know. Yeah.
And they're, and Greg Braden, and they're talking about how to become supernatural. That's Dispenza's title. Right. And his story is he was in a bike accident, hit by a car, and they said, you'll never walk again. And he used his own mind to tap into his higher consciousness to program to heal his body. And he, got his health and his life back. And then he's been teaching all this. So, yeah, I mean, we know we're living in a very powerful time, and again, it's like if people don't feel safe, loved, and supported, if people don't have good boundaries, if we don't have a sense that our life is meaningful, and we're not connected to people in a positive way, or if we are, to put it in the positive, that is the difference that I see, and I'm sure you must as well, of people that are really deeply struggling in life right now versus people that have some access to the resources of how to empower and channel these energies.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the difference between kind of, like having a really well-balanced kayak in the midst of a river, or kind of just bobbling down the stream, with no protection.
Yes, another good metaphor.
Yeah,
yes,
but I mean, the river is flowing really fast at the moment, isn't it? And I think it's really tough for everybody.
Sure.
And it's such an investment again, isn't it, to find that inner source, to make that inner alignment in order that we can feel a sense of power, a sense of choice, in relation to all that seems to be going on in the outside world.
Yes.
Can I just say,
go on? Yeah.
I just want to say to people, just not
our crowd of millions.
Just struggling with the kind of coordination of. So I hope people aren't feeling kind of that I'm not looking. It's just I'm not quite sure where to look.
Sure. I've confused her thoroughly as usual.
So.
Well, I'm sure they're taking it personally wherever they are. But let me come back to what you just said, because that really is the heart of the matter to me. I mean, this is the conversation we had, when we met last Friday there. I feel like that is the make or break issue of everyone on the planet moving into the future, which is you either have access to some part of yourself, God, spirit, source, heart, love, peace, whatever you want to call it, that brings you back into your truth and your power, or you're lost in the intense, choppy waters, the chaos and confusion of this very intense and challenging time we're moving through.
I mean, I always get a bit kind of wary when I hear a kind of black and white.
Okay, I'll take that on. Yes, sure.
Because I'm sure the truth is kind of grayer in a set. Well, more colourful actually than black and white.
That's a better way.
Yes. It doesn't sound too tempting with grey, does it? But
there are more shades in all of that. It isn't so cut and dried. You're saying.
Exactly. Okay. And for all of us to be alive, we have that kind of spirit running through us.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that in relation to ourselves and also in relation to other people.
Sure.
And I think for us to kind of move well through this kind of tumultuous time, the kind of concept of we, the remembering of the interconnection of all of us is fundamental.
Yes. Our inherent oneness with all of life. And
remembering that even if people or ourselves, or intimate others, family members, for example, if they seem not to be connected to that deeper truth, it's not because it's not flowing through them. But it's just that they might need some support to align their consciousness.
Sure. No, that's a great point. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I actually, I channeled something recently where my guide said, we don't want you to make another wrong. We want you to find the place in your heart that is right for you and right for your world. And that is the heart of the paradox, that you're describing. And again, just energetically, I consider that more of the divine feminine energy, which is the part of all of us, men and women, etc., that is able to create that, hold that two conflicting thoughts together without reacting or responding from pain or fear or judgment. Love, compassion, tolerance, acceptance. And I think that all those energies are going to be deeply challenged these days.
Yeah, and again, going back to Julia's work. So, I mean, I think the stronger that conscious flow of the divine through us, then the greater the capacity we have to hold those paradoxes. It's almost like an emotional capacity, isn't it, that we're growing?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's a learned skill. That you can. It's an inherent thing in all of us. But to be able to call on it in moments of stress and strain, that's a practice, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's one thing to be peaceful and not zoning out, in my little room. It's something else if I'm facing a crisis or some angry or upset person. It's like, okay, prove it to yourself or demonstrate it. Yeah.
I don't know who it was. It might have been Yogi Bhajan that said, was it Yogi Bhajan?
Was it Yogi Bear?
I'm sure it was Yogi Bear, but anyway, whoever it was.
One of the yogis.
Was saying, saying that compassion is the same as tolerance.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And it's trying to get that balance too, isn't it? Between, kind of tolerance and also having the capacity to say in any one moment, actually, no, that's not right for me.
Right.
Or, I stand up for this.
Yeah.
But without doing it in that kind of divisive and blaming way.
Exactly. Yes. Well said. Without having to make somebody else wrong.
Yeah.
We'd all rather die than be wrong. I mean, I think I'm just generalizing here. But that's.
I have to think about that one.
Well, there was Sadhguru, the guy with the long beard. So he says the way to this. I just saw this today. He says the way to make peace with others is not to argue with them. And the chap he's talking to says, I disagree. And he says, you're right, of course. My own personal epiphany happened in my early 20s when I learned I could say, you could be right, and it's like creating that space for tolerance, compassion, acceptance. The Course in Miracles says you can be right or you can be happy, but you can't be both.
I remember that.
Right. So it's like, the perspective is going to change, values are going to change, needs are going to change. All that is, passing through us. It's learning how, like we're saying about harmony and balance, learning how to be still within it. And again, when you're writing every day, when you're looking at this great material, when you're, sitting with Marianne and myself, and we do our lives on Wednesday nights, etc., we're going to hold that space for everyone to find their own truth.
And just thinking there of so I've just started doing the morning pages again.
Great.
Just to, be kind of walking the
talk. Yes.
And it just struck me then, I wonder what we could say to people in relation to their support of themselves, because when you start the morning pages, it's an invitation to get that stuff moving, stuff that's been, kind of sat on.
Sure.
And that can be a really powerful experience.
That's a great subject. I mean, my own take on that is, don't judge your efforts. Do your best. Focus on the process. Don't reread it. Don't worry about what you're saying. Don't worry if you're doing it perfectly. None of us are. It's just meant to be like the session here, our little time together. A space for us to express ourselves, and then really to hear, as we write it out, what's important to us.
I get that. I agree with all of
Okay.
that. And I also think that, I mean, the reason that we kind of block the fountain within us
Right.
is to keep things manageable, isn't it?
Sure.
And so, as we start kind of allowing those kind of blockages to be gently dissolved, the flow gets stronger, brings some of the kind of residue of that difficult material up into consciousness.
Yeah.
So I agree with all you've said. And then there's also that kind of question of, okay, so how do we make sure that everybody's supported enough through that process? Because, it's one thing to say, well, don't judge yourself, just go with the flow. But,
Sure.
It means that difficult material is going to be kind of moving
Sure.
more strongly
Sure.
through people.
Sure. No, it's a very good point you're making.
So how do we create, or how do we help people create a safety net for that? I mean, obviously we've got the Wednesday night slot. We can answer questions.
Right.
And we'll be holding.
Yeah.
I think we can intend during the week.
Yes.
In our own practices,
yes,
to ensure that that we can, add to that sense of holding. But we might also be advising people about how they might put certain things in place to hold themselves during the process.
Sure. Well, this is where actually the page itself, the Facebook page, can become a vessel for us to hold that space and to support each other.
Okay.
So, like Joe and I have another group, Divine Love Supreme Support Group, where people post things and do videos and this kind of thing, and then we look at them and we respond to that. So that would be
good. Okay, yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
Yeah,
so it's like a kind of virtual post box in the sense where,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is why Facebook is so popular, because despite its many political shortcomings, it is still a space for people to create their own groups and to have the privacy and the safety, to share these feelings with each other without feeling that anyone else is going to look in on it or be thinking about it. And so that's the way I would answer that.
So just because I'm not very technologically minded at all, but
sure.
So then if somebody was struggling, they can log on to Facebook and they can actually post a video that says, I'm struggling this week, or I've had a brilliant week, or any of those things. And
all of that.
You and I can go back through that material.
Yes.
Okay. And address that on the Wednesday evening?
Yes, for sure, if not before that. You see. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, this is why I'm on the bloody thing all day long, because Messenger, as well as Facebook, allows you to communicate a lot very quickly. And, it doesn't mean that we have to be,
available 24/7.
Yes, thank you. There you go.
Yeah.
But it means we can keep in touch with everyone who's in the group.
Okay.
And that's pretty easy to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Good. Okay. Yeah. You're in then.
I'm in.
I'm delighted. Me too. So, all right, the last thing I'll say, because I was saying this before, is financially, everyone, Marianne and I are inviting you in for €15 per session. If you want to get the early bird discount, it is, so we're doing 12 weeks at €60 a month is $180, and we'll give you an early bird discount for the next 2 weeks to $150. If you will pay all that up front, you're good to go. And we're very excited to be doing this, I think.
Really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really feeling really grateful for the opportunity to be working on the book directly again.
Good.
Yeah.
Me too with you, my friend. Thank you. Okay. That should hold you for the moment. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Let us know if you have any questions. We'll be on next Wednesday, 7 o'clock UK time in the evening. Yeah. And if you're not able to make that time and still want to be in the group, we can simply post you the video. We'll do it here on Zoom as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Have a great day. Thanks again.